Right. Hang on. Hold on. I have so many buttons in front of me. Right. So here, I just want to make sure that everybody got it. Right. So, so just to highlight, just to go back to the takeaway learning shared by Miss Molina yesterday. So this is, I just want to highlight and focus your attention. These are the types of assessment. There are actually, I mentioned to you, there are 6, but we are advising that you make use of the formative, the summative, the authentic, and the traditional. For now, we are focusing on the use of the traditional type of assessment, and that's by using the paper and pen test, right? So here, I promised you yesterday as well that this is not in your material. I can share it with you again. So you remember yesterday, one of you highlighted about you're not using checklist, right? So a checklist normally, and I mentioned to you that it's actually an assessment tool that you use just to assess when your students perform a task. What you want to know is whether as he performs the task, we know that each task, there are many steps, and he needs to complete all of those steps correctly according to the right sequence. Now, if there is the presence of the performance, then you put the tick. And if there is absence, then you tick under the absence. And then if, let's say, your student performs a task and yeah, he did perform well, but there are aspects that you need for him to redo, you need for him to pay attention to, then you can have a column that you can say remarks. Now I can see here, like example here. So this is just a simple classroom activity where it is, your activity is a group work. Even a group work, you can make a checklist, but you need to know what are the steps that you want to be involved in a group work activity. So in this case, because most of you are handling secondary teachers, right? Secondary students rather. So sometimes not many of them are into the laboratory or the workshop, but more in the classroom. So I want to share with you something like the process involved in a group activity. So here, this is more of the group activity, right? This over here. So you will do that, and then look at the instructions. It says, listed below are the traits of a cooperative group member in a given out-of-class task. So you gave them a task. Check those traits true to yourself as a member of a group, right? So what are the steps that you want to observe that they do? So in your case, entirely up to you as a teacher. So you say, because it is a group work, so these are the things that you expect your students to follow. Attends meetings, attends on time, shares ideas, listens to others' ideas, performs, does satisfactory assignment, contributes in cash, other requirements, and you may specify. This is just an example. Okay, later on, I can give you another example on the actual performance of a task and the steps involved. So you can later on, according to the standard as per the industry, you can put. Now look here, you have the 2 columns, yes and no. Yes, if the student performs. Yes, 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 yes. If the student is able to perform all of this. Yeah. Now sometimes not all students can perform. So therefore, it could be number one and two, yes, yes. Number three is a no. 4, 5, 6 is a yes, yes. 7 is a no. Now, what happens is competency based. Okay, I will put here. I'm typing, hang on. To perform of the steps correctly. Right, I say here in CBT, if there is absence in the performance of steps of a given task, the student has to repeat that particular step until he is able to perform all of the steps correctly. Okay, in CBT as well, you have either two results. You have two results. Either competent or not yet competent. Have you heard this? In CBT, you have two results. Either a student is competent or not yet competent. And you do not put a student with the mark failed. You always make sure that in CBT, if a student is unable to perform a given step in a task, you are to ask that student to keep repeating until that non-performance becomes a performance. Then everything under the column yes is tick, 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 tick. And then you can say he is or she is competent. Okay? Now, obviously, that is CBT, but sometimes every country has its own way or system of marking. So I am just sharing with you the context and concept of assessment in CBT. Okay, so because what we want is when you say CBT, we want our students prior to leaving your college to be considered competent and able to take up employment. Okay, so hence you do not let him leave your college until he is what you call considered competent. Right. So moving on, I hope it is clear with you, everyone. So let's continue on. Right, so this is what Mr. Sofat was saying earlier, the two main types of written tests. So remember, it is written test, not just two types of tests, but two types of written tests, which could be objective or subjective or essay. Okay, and we know that objective test has two main types, recall and recognition. And Mr. Sovat repeated earlier that recall types has 4 subtypes: simple recall, completion, enumeration, identification. And the recognition type has 3 types: true, false, or alternate response, multiple choice, and matching type. All right. So let's go back now to this one. We can now continue with the second type of recognition type of written test, which is under the objective. You have the use of multiple choice, right? What is a multiple choice? Okay, you know that in using multiple choice, the question is composed of a stem and distractors. Distractors, another name for it is choices, right? So the stem is basically the main question that you want your students to answer, and the students will select their correct answer from the choices or from the distractors that you have listed. Okay, so here it says the stem could be an incomplete statement, a direct question, a problem situation or a scenario, or it could be a picture, it could be a diagram, it could be a graph, it could be a pie chart, it could be a pictograph, right? Now, what you do is, sometimes you use images, but you have to have some description underneath. You cannot just put a picture and you don't have anything to say about it. And then you leave the students to guess what they're supposed to be doing. So that is wrong. Remember, we said it has to be very clear and easily understood by your student. Now, your stem should use 3 to 5 distractors. Okay, meaning to say, look here, there are how many in this stem? There are 1, 2, 3, 4. There are 4 distractors. So you have to remember, this is the stem, and these are the choices, are the distractors. Now you can have from 3 and up to 5, but never only 2 distractors. The number of choices used in the first item should be the same in all the items. The choices should be related in some way or should belong to the same class. Meaning to say, your choices should be more or less of the same class. It cannot be far different from one another. Okay? And then I will show you an example as well. Look here, using scenario in the STEM, you can generate higher order thinking skills. Remember, when you say this one, HOTS, I will go back here. I need to, here, remember? Yesterday we learned about Bloom's taxonomy. You can also make your STEM or your question items capturing either the lots, the lots, 1, 2, 3, the lower part, or the higher part, higher thinking skills. So it's, even though it is objective type, you don't always necessarily have to make them fall under the lower order thinking skill. You can still capture the higher order thinking skills, but you will need to use these words. Look, you always go back to the slides that I share with you as reference. If you use these words as your task, you know that, oh, this means I am capturing the higher order thinking skills. If I use assess, measure, oh, evaluate, that means I'm also using the higher order thinking skills. So depending on the task that you want your student to do, then you will be able to tell whether the question that you have is either falling under the HOTS or the LOTS. Remember, LOTS here, L-O-T, LOTS, H-O-T, HOTS. Okay. I hope it's clear with you. So here, as I shared just now, here using the scenario, so you are also capturing the HOTS because you are to either apply, analyze, evaluate, and create. So here you have the scenario here. Now look at the question. Sorry, the the choices or the distractors. 6 hours, 5 hours, 4 hours, 2 hours. The way you write the choices is either from big to small or from small to big. Okay? So you notice this one is from 5 hours, 4 hours, 2 hours. So it's going down. Or you can also put 2 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours. So you are making order, but not 5 hours, 2 hours, 6 hours, 4 hours. That's not organized. So you are to guide now. You are now to reorganize the way you write your distractors. Next, it could also be treated with several multiple choice questions, but these questions must be independent, meaning they are separated, not related. But look here, look at the way the choices are written. Short, shortest, shorter, shortest, it's going from short to long, short to long. Here, short to long, short to long. Or you can do it the other way, long to short, as long as your sequencing is from long going down or from going down up. That should be how you are to write your choices, how you are to write your distractors. Right, so these are the principles that you have to be guided with. The choices should be one correct answer only, should be numbered or lettered. Okay, choices are figures arranged in ascending order, meaning going up, either in numerical or in the arrangement. Oops. Avoid using article a or an so that you do not give them tips. Random occurrence of responses should be employed, meaning to say you do not give the answers in pattern like A, B, C, A, B, C, D, like that. But then they will know that the correct answer is always B. Next question is also B. Next question is also B. Your student will know, all the multiple choices, the answers is letter B, because you are giving them that notion that your arrangement is all the correct answers belong to letter B. It has to be random. The choices should be as much as possible at the end of the statements. Avoid the use of none of these, all of the above, and the score is the number of the correct answer. Okay? I hope it's correct. I hope it is clear with you. You have to let me know. Do you understand it, everyone?
Yes,
Hello.
it's
Okay,
clear
good. Thank
now.
you.
Excuse me, Professor. Excuse me.
Yes.
Uh, I would like you to explain once again the
Which
points that
one?
avoid the use of an or
Right.
a or an.
Okay.
Can you give?
Sometimes it's you call a or a, an or an. You call this as articles. Now, when you say if you put article a or an before the blank, that means you are giving the students a tip. Like, if it is, remember, if you use article a, you said the next word that follows will be consonant. What are consonant? Remember the alphabets, the vowels, a, e,
Yeah,
o,
yeah,
u, right?
yeah,
So
yeah.
when the word a, e, o, u is before those a, e, o, u, the vowels words, the article that should be in front is an, right? So therefore, an apple, an orange, an umbrella, an igloo, an what else? An elephant. So if you put the article "and" before the blank, they will know that, oh, it's either something that begins with letter A, E, O, U. So you're giving them a tip. So you don't put article "and." And you don't put article either, because what are articles are? Words that follow after article would be B, C, D, F, G, H, J, K, L, M, N, P, Q, R, S, T, V, W. So if you put article "a" or "a" before the blank, then your student will know that you are looking for the answer that begins to either one of those consonant letters. Okay? Is that clear?
Yeah, it's clear. Thank you.
Okay, good. Right. Anything else? Thank you very much, Mr.
Yeah,
Chang, for
in
okay.
Cynthia, I want to ask you about the multiple choice, and
Okay.
can we apply multiple choice with the Bloom taxonomy with the highest level, example like creation or evaluation? Can
Yes, you can. You can. In fact, I intend to give you example of test questions whereby all the levels are captured. I will share with you an example where you have the level for remember, understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluation, and creating. Don't worry, I will share it with you so that you will be able, you will be guided, and you can use that as your example. Okay? Like for example, um, it really depends on the way your question is written. But can I give it the example to you in the afternoon?
yeah.
All right, don't worry. I will not leave you without it, because it is my intention to give you an example so that you can make full use of the Bloom's taxonomy as you develop your written test questions, because it is important that you know how do you do that. So if you don't have any example, probably you will find it a little bit difficult. And so after the example is given, I think you will be able to reorganize. I'm sure you have done already some of the tests, so at least you can reorganize that the test that you have will have a combination of all the levels of Bloom's taxonomy. Yeah? Okay, so I hope that's fine with you. Thank you. So anybody else? Any questions? Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, I hear.
Okay,
But
good. Thank you.
no
Okay.
question for you too.
Okay, good. So somebody, right? No question. Okay, great. So let's proceed so that we can accomplish a lot. So the multiple choice type is clear already, yeah? What guidelines we can follow. Okay, we go now to matching type. So this is an example of matching type. You will notice that matching type, there will always be two columns. And then there is a column that will be the one that describes about the question, and then that would be letter A, and then the column that tells you the correct answer to choose from. And you always have the blank written or a position right before the question that you want answered, right? So an example here would be, in column A are the functions of MS Windows control panel items, while in column B are the names of the items. So what do you do? That's why it's called matching type. The description that you have under column A should fall under one of these choices here. Now, what you do is, if there are 5 descriptions here, your choices must not be exactly 5. You should have at least 6 to 7 choices, because doing that, you are allowing your students to think, not to guess, but to think, because they will see, okay, specify how long it takes. So which one? No, not accessibility. No, not admin tools. No, not add remove. So they will go over each of these choices for them to process as to which of these choices really meets the description that you have. Never equal the choices for the correct answers with the description or the question that you want answered. Okay, so example here, look, in matching type, you have to state the directions for the basis of the students to match the stimuli and the responses. So here, column A is what you call the stimuli, and those under column B is what you call the responses. So you need to make sure that the stimuli match the responses correctly. And here, if there are 5 stimuli, then therefore your responses should have at least 6 or 7 types of responses, of which 5 of those responses correspond to the 5 stimuli. There should be 2 columns. Column A are the stimuli, and they should be longer and more descriptive than the responses you can find in column B. Like here, stimuli, responses, longer in description, shorter because they are the answers. The stimuli under column B should be numbered, and the responses should be lettered. You notice here, stimuli is numbered, responses are lettered. So when they find the correct answer, so the correct answer for number 1 is D. So they will put the answer here, D. Sometimes your instruction would be write the correct answer, like the letter only to the correct answers. So you put letter D. So you have to be very clear with your description. So here, look, write only the letter of your answer on the space provided. So only, let's say B, C, D, F, G, like that. So therefore, only the letters should be written. The number of pairs usually should not exceed 20 items, meaning to say you are not to have you are not to use matching type where your number will have more than 20. The maximum is 20. Okay. 20 pairs may be used, but more than is a waste of time. Me, I normally either between 10 to 15, but I don't go to 20. So 10 is the minimum. The most or maximum is 20, but you can have maximum also to 15. So it really depends on the contents that you will have covered in your unit. The responses under column B should be 2 or more than the number responses in column A. And why? To avoid guessing. Okay, so even though it is objective type, but still there is mental processing that takes place before the choice of correct answer is done. Is this correct, everybody? Hello? Can you hear me?
Hello, hello.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes, I
Okay.
got it.
Okay, good. Thank you very much. Okay, only one matching, only one correct matching for each item should be possible. Matching sets should neither be too long nor too short. Items should be listed in random order in each list, meaning to say it doesn't have to be like, again, if you look here, when you say in random order, if let's say, if these are the questions, you are not to put 1, the correct answer is A. 2, the correct answer is B. C, the correct answer is C. For the correct answer is D. You may rearrange it so that your students will not guess, so that your students will have a chance to process their cognition. Yeah. So that's the way to go about it. Right. All items should be on the same page to avoid turning of pages in the process of matching pairs. So this means when you use matching type as a written test type, make sure that all of those question items fall on one page, right? Try not to go to the next page to complete your matching type items. And then write clear directions to indicate the basis on which the lists are to be matched and how they are to respond. And the score is number of correct answers. So meaning to say here, this will be your direction. It should be very clearly written, so that simply written so your students can easily follow. Now, we go now to the another type of test or another type of written test, which we call subjective or essay questions. Now, how do you go about subjective or essay questions? It could be either essay question, could be either essay in written form, or you could have a question that is stated orally. Okay, now how do you go about it? It could be a comparison of two things, explanation of the use or meaning of a statement or passage. It could be an analysis. It could be a decision for or against. It could be a discussion. So it could be even a scenario where you would like your student to discuss or to say something about what you have given in your scenario. Now, when you do this, okay, so here is an example. Essay type. Most of the research in organizational behavior has been concerned with three attitudes: job satisfaction, job involvement, and organizational commitment. Now look here, explain the differences between these attitudes. So that in itself becomes your essay. So therefore, your student should be able to describe what is job satisfaction, what is job involvement, what is organizational commitment. Why? Because they are being asked to explain the differences. That's all. Or you can also have another one, which is what process is better to use in welding alloy steel? And then if they make a choice, one, they need to make a choice. Second, they have to explain the choice that they made. Okay. Next, you can also ask them to draw a diagram of a complete welding plant and explain its operation. Same thing with electrical electronics. You can ask them to complete a diagram and then ask them to explain what the diagram is all about. So this is very easy. If you want something easy, then you think you can do use the subjective. The only problem when you use essay is you need to have a rubric, you need to have a grading criteria. Now look here, this is using a table. Using the data below, answer the following questions. Right, so here there are possibility of productions A, B, C. And then you have the description, pounds of butter, A uses 600. B uses 500 pounds of butter. C is not using anything. Now, the number of breads produced, A produces 0 bread, B produces 100 bread, C, without any pounds of butter, produces 200 bread. Now, If moving from possibility A to possibility, what is the opportunity cost of producing more bread? If moving from possibility C to possibility B, what is the opportunity cost of producing more butter? So everybody, this is just an example, right? It doesn't mean that you have to do like this. This is just to give you an idea that there are many ways that you can format your essay or your subjective type. Okay, another one is here. Discuss why the demonstration method is especially appropriate for teaching manipulative skills, right? If you have this question as a teacher and you want your student to answer, you make sure that you have already a model answer. Don't come up with an essay question and then you yourself, you don't have any sample answer. Okay, so in this case, if this is the essay question, this is at least the minimum answers you would like or you expect your students to give you. Now, if your student is able to provide everything that you have here, then if your question, if your essay is 20 marks, then he captures everything that you put in your model answer, then the score of that student should be 20 marks. Okay? Is that clear? Hello? Is this clear, everyone?
Now I don't clear about this.
You are clear, yeah?
Don't clear, don't clear.
Unclear. Which one are you unclear with? This essay. Now,
Can you explain me again?
okay, right. Now, we're talking about the second type of written test, which is essay or subjective, right? An example of that essay is this one here. Oops. Here, this is your question that you want your students to do. The one that I am circling. So in your written test, you will only have this. Okay? Now, you as a teacher, you have to have something ready so that when your students give you the answer, you have a guide, right? And your guide is this one, the model answer. An essay will require you to have a model answer. Why? Because that will assist you in your marking. You have to have something ready already so that when you read your students' answer, you know what you are looking for. Okay? So meaning you have to prepare your answers in advance. Do not, when the students read this and then you yourself don't know the answer, you should know and you should have a ready answer to the essay questions that you want your student to answer. Is that clear, Mr. Samut? This one,
got it. Yeah, got it. Yeah.
okay, this model answer, you will not give your students. This is just for you. Okay, you will only give this part to the student. Discuss why the demonstration or anything that is essay orientated. But the answers, only teacher can see. Okay, why? You need to have something ready so that when you mark, you know what to look for in your students' answers. If you don't have anything ready, how will you mark your students' work? Okay, so meaning any essay questions that we make, we have to have a ready answer. Is that clear? Mr. Samut?
Yeah, I clear.
Okay. I really want you to be saying clear, but it is really clear. I want everybody to say it is clear. So again, this is the question. This is your guide. This is your answer. Only the question you give your students. Here, only teacher knows about this. When you're to student, okay, teacher, I'm finished with the test. Here is my test. Then when you want to mark 1, 2, go, go. Oops, essay. Let me see. Succession of steps, correct. Order in the which perform those, correct. Techniques involved in perform, correct. And the safety precaution involved, correct. And then all the answers given are found in your model answer. Then the score of your student should be perfect. Is that correct? Clear?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So let's proceed. Now another one here
Excuse me,
is
Cynthia.
who? Yes, Mr. Sopat, who is
Yeah,
talking?
yeah, I am so proud.
Mhm,
Related to a model question
mhm.
here, it is just only a clue that we perform for our student to work when he or she perform writing, right?
No, you're not. If it is essay, you're not supposed to. That's why between objective and subjective, objective is much easier to do, but subjective, it seems easier to prepare, but to mark it is quite difficult. When you give subjective question, you are not supposed to give any clue. You are just stating what it is that you want them to do, and that's why your instruction has to be very clear. Okay, there is no clue that you are supposed to give them. All you have to do is give them a clear instruction as to what it is that you would like for them to do. Okay, just like in this question, you did not see any tips, any clue how they should answer. All they have to do is discuss or answer the question why demonstration method is appropriate for teaching manipulative skills. So this is just an example question. Obviously, the question that you will use is something related to the lesson. Okay, is that clear, Mr. Sopat?
Yeah, I got it. I got it. Thank you.
Okay, good. So you are not to give any clue or any tips as to how students are to answer. That's why you make your question, your essay question, as simple and as straightforward as possible so that the student will be able to answer properly. On the other hand, as the teacher, you are expected to have your ready model answer as your guide when you mark your students' test answers. Okay, moving on. Let's go to another example. Is showing students several ways of performing the skill a good idea? Why or why not? Okay, so this is also an open-ended question where all you expect is for the student to answer. If the student answer, uh, so here he has to answer how many? 2. Why it is important and why it is not. Why is it a good idea to show only one way of performing a skill? And why is it also not good to show many ways of performing a skill? So if you have that question, then as a teacher, there should be ready answers. Okay, so look here, why or why not? It says here, it is not a good idea to present more than one way to perform a manipulative skill. Mastering all the steps involved in one method is possible, but 2 or more methods for a new skill can be confusing. It is far better to limit the amount of new information you can expect. So and so forth and so on. So here, they are asked to answer whether why or why not. So in this case, the question answered here is it is not a good idea to show several ways of performing a skill. So the way you write your question will help your student answer the question fully well. Okay? Next. How do you, this is the step that you can follow when you construct an essay question. So again, determine the objectives or essential for each question. So bear in mind, even if it is essay question, we have to base our essay question as to the performance objectives of our unit, of our lesson. Okay, so everything is based on the performance objectives or the learning outcomes of your lesson. Phrases of phrase questions here in simple, clear, and concise language. Straightforward, easily understood words. Suit the length of the questions to the time available for answering this. Now, later you will learn that if you have an essay in your test item, you are to remember that in CBT is competency-based education, CBET, competency-based education and training. When you write an essay or when you want your student to answer an essay question, you are to give them at least 20 to 30 minutes time to answer. Okay, so each type of question has a duration that you need to give your students to be able to answer properly. Okay, so later you will say, if objective, how many minutes? If short answer, how many minutes? If essay, how many minutes? All right, so here, look at the scoring. Have a model answer in advance. What do we have? Model answer. What do we have? Model answer. So here, what do you score? How do you score? You need to have a model answer prepared ahead of time. Indicate the number of points for each question and score a point for each essential question answer. Okay? Now, look here. These are some of the words, sample words that you use in essay or subjective questions. Now look here, you can have analyze. When you use these words in essay, these are the things that you would like your students to do. Analyze, that means you would like your students to break into separate parts and discuss, examine, or interpret this part. Compare. If you use the word compare in your essay, they are to examine two or more things. First, identify the similarities. Second, identify their differences. Okay? Contrast. Here, this is, you show the differences. Criticize, meaning based on your opinion, make your judgment. Okay? Then define. Here, you are to give meaning, explain the meaning. Describe, you are to give a detailed account. Discuss, you are to consider and debate or argue or give the pros and cons. Enumerate, you are to list. You have to write them down. Evaluate, you have to give your opinion. Include your, if you give your opinion, why do you choose, why do you say so? Illustrate, you are to give, if you make a choice, then you have to give examples. Interpret, you give your own opinion, you give your own judgment. Outline, you are to give and describe the main ideas, the main characteristics. Prove, when you are asked to prove, you have to give evidence. You have to give support or something that will, okay, why did you say so? And then you have state, explain precisely or clearly. Summarize, give a brief condensed account. When you say summarize, you normally use your own words, you paraphrase, and then trace. Trace normally either you can have the records show in order of events through a diary sequence of events. Yeah, so this is just an example of the some of the many words that you can use when you want your students to answer an essay or objective type of written test. So when you use these words in the essay, these are the things that you expect them to be able to do, okay, accordingly. Now, advantages and disadvantages, okay? The good things and the bad things when you use recall test items, okay? First, we will use the recall items. So you have the short answer, you have the completion, and you have the essay. Here you have can be constructed quickly, can test break idea areas of knowledge, and also here the disadvantages could be many possible answers to most questions. And if this is for recall, yeah, grading is open to subjectivity. Grading is quite time consuming, encourages memorization of fact, and it could be time consuming to take. Okay, now that is for the recall test items. You look here. For the recognition type items, look. You have multiple choice, true, false, matching type. Advantages, students can respond quickly. Only one correct answer can be graded very quickly, can be graded by a proctor or clerk, meaning to say, if you have the answer key or answer guide to the answers, you do not necessarily have to answer or mark the test. You can ask an assistant, you can ask someone to help you with the marking. Okay, but there should be a guide. And then once if you ask someone to help you with the marking, you are not to straight away record the results. You again have to check the marking done by somebody. Grading is very objective, and items can test ability to make judgments and evaluate alternatives. What are the negative points? Good items are sometimes difficult to construct. If items are not worded properly, guessing may become a problem. Okay? Now, it says here, all things considered, the well-constructed multiple choice item is perhaps, now look here, it is perhaps the most suitable item, test item for competency-based training. So in CBET or in CBT, they advise that a well-constructed MCQ, multiple choice item, is more preferred. Everyone? So it doesn't mean that all your test items should be MCQ, but it is preferred that if you will have written tests, your MCQ should have more like in numbers. Okay? If you have true or false, let's say 15 types. If you have matching type is another 15 types, 15 test items, but your MCQ, you could have 20 types. So 15, 15, 30 plus 20, you have 50 written test items, okay? Is this correct, everyone? I mean, sorry, is this clear rather, everyone? Any questions? Hello?
No, teacher.
Hello, Professor.
Okay, so it's clear. Okay, so just make use of this as your reference in your guiding. So my assignment later is I will give you an example of a written test as in the multiple choice items where you can capture the 6 levels of cognitive domain. Right. And so the summary of module 2 would be there are general principles that we need to follow when we construct written tests, and the Bloom's taxonomy make use of the 6 levels of cognitive domain, namely remembering, understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, and creating. And all these 6 domains, okay, you can use them as you construct your written tests. And I've shared with you, there are several advantages and disadvantages in your development of written tests. There are 2 main types of written tests, objective and subjective or essay tests. And the objective test has 2 types, which is recall and recognition. The recall test consists of the simple recall, completion, enumeration, and identification. And whereas recognition consists of consists of true, false, or alternate response, multiple choice, and matching type. Good. So we now have to go to module 3 because later on, I think we have to have some practical activities. Yeah. And I would like to request for us to have a quick break. Sorry. I know that we're supposed to have a break at 10:30, but I feel we all need to have a break because it's rather a long lecture already. So what is the time now? It's now 10:18. It's now 10:18.
So then
So
9:20.
over on your part is 9:20. So we could have a break of another 15 minutes. Yeah. So I'll see you at 10:35. Okay.
Yeah.
So that would be 9:35
Yes,
Cambodian time.
Yeah.
9:35. Thank you. I'll see you in a bit. Thank you. Terima kasih.
Yeah.
Quick break just now. Right. So let's resume with our training session this morning. And our next module is on guidelines for written test items construction. It's very important that we know about these guidelines so that later on in our activities, you should be able to come up or develop an appropriate or a suitable written test relevant to the training program that you are teaching, right? And along with that, we would be discussing and learning as well about the table of specifications. So moving along, at the end of this module, you will be able to explain the guidelines for written test items construction to instruction, explain a table of specifications, describe the steps in developing a table of specifications, and then develop a table of specifications. Now, the table of specifications that you will be developing here, for practice, it will be a group work. And you should be able to, you should be making use of a module that you are teaching in your classes so that you can apply the learning that you have already, that you have from this training into your classroom requirements. Okay, let's move on. What are the guidelines that we need to follow when we develop a written test? Okay, these look very long, but they are really quite straightforward. Okay, simply number 1, make certain that test items assess the student's mastery of tasks. Meaning to say, the test that you are going to develop has to do with your students having mastered the task. Meaning having mastered means they know very well, they can perform well. And it all depends on your learning outcomes. Sometimes the learning outcomes consist of skills, sometimes the learning outcomes consist of knowledge. And these knowledge are very important for your students to be able to perform the skills. So knowledge and skills, they go hand in hand, right? Do not include test items that question the learner on content outside the scope of the task and not included in the learning activities. So it's very clear, based on the learning outcomes and the learning objectives of your lesson. Two, remember, the primary purpose of testing is to assess whether or not your student has mastered a task. You are only able, you will go to the next level once you are able to determine that your students is already skilled in the task at hand. Then they go to the next level. Then they will again master that level until everything about a given duty is really carried out. Now, I'm not very sure whether, do you know what duties and tasks are, everyone?
Pardon, please.
Do you know the difference between duties and tasks? What are duties? What are tasks? Do you know the difference?
We are not sure it's still similar.
Okay, so it all boils down like this. In competency, there are many ways that we can analyze a competency, and then one is through job analysis, and the other one, okay, I will write here. All right. When we develop a curriculum, and we use our job, we analyze the job using DACAM or functional analysis. If it is using job analysis, then we have to, what is a job, what is a duty, and what is a task, right? So that is actually the composition. Task, the job is the occupation, like a teacher, right? Or like an electrician. Now, an electrician or a teacher, okay, let's say job equals teacher, right? Sorry. Okay. And then duty is okay. One of the duties of a teacher is develop a lesson plan. So what is the task? So what would be is, then the duty would be, oh, sorry, I'm confusing you. Sorry. So a duty would be, duty would be, okay. So one of the many duties is to teach students. So the task to teach to carry out the duty of teaching a students, there are many tasks. Okay, so here the sequence will be like this, everybody. So you know the difference. Job, followed by duty, followed by task. This is how we do it. Job, duty, task. Now, in competency base, we are talking about the task because the smaller parts of a duty is the main component of your competency. Okay, but our lesson is not actually on curriculum development. I'm just giving you a short background how all these written tests come about. Remember, in learning outcomes, the learning outcomes talk about the mastery performance of a task. You notice here, you see, students' mastery of the task, and then content. Do not question the students on our content outside the content of the task, not included in the learning of the activities. Okay, making sure that you assess them on mastery of the task. So you mentioned all the time, you always see task, 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 because task is the smallest component, second smallest component of a of a job. So a job example is a teacher. As a teacher has many duties, and one of the many duties of a teacher is to teach students. All right. Now, to teach students, there are many tasks involved. One of the tasks is develop a lesson plan. Okay. Now, that task of develop a lesson plan has a number of steps. Now, a teacher can become competent in developing a lesson plan if he or she is able to perform all the steps involved in developing a lesson plan. Is that clear, everyone? Hello?
Yeah, it's clear.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
yes, yes.
Okay, right. Because I'm just giving you the context of where the task is coming from. The task comes from a job. A job consists of many duties. One duty consists of many tasks. One task consists of many steps. Now here, we are talking about the task where your student is expected to be able to perform all the steps that make up a task. Okay? If he or she is able to perform all the steps fully, completely, and correctly, then we can say he is a competent person of such a given task. Okay? Next. Okay, trick items do not do nothing but waste of time. Okay, so it means everyone, there is noise barrier. There's a bit of noise. I'm sorry. Okay, right. So you look at number 3. Your number 3 here, trick items do not. When you say trick, meaning to say, do not include.
ជំរាបសួរអ្នកគ្រូឆេងគឺមានរឿងសម្លេងរំខានអ្នកគ្រូ
ចា sorry
បាទអ្នកគ្រូ
Right. Look at number 3, everybody. If you are going to develop a written test, make sure that all the questions that you have are all focused on the learning outcomes, learning activities, learning contents that you have in that particular session. Do not use questions that are tricky, that are your objective is not to assess your students' mastery, but to trick them. That should not be practiced, yeah, because that is wrong. Avoid items that force the students to simply recall. That's why when you develop tests or when you construct tests, it should be a combination of the different types of test items. It could be true or false, it could be matching type, it could be multiple choice, it could be essay. You can try as many as 3 types. Not less than 2 and not less than 3, but not so many either. So the minimum is there are 3 types of written tests that you will make use of in your constructed written test. Okay, here include enough, but only enough items on a test to fully assess the student's mastery of the key concepts that are covered in the scope of the task. Broader and more complex knowledge tasks will require more tests. Now, if you think you covered a lot of items, then do not make the test so many. What you could do is you can split your test. If you think you will have 100 items, then at first you can have part 1, 50 items. Then the next day you could have part 2, another 50 items. Do not make the lot 100 items in one sitting. It will be too much. Okay? Too much. It will take so much time of your students, and that will be a waste of time of everybody. Make sure that the test items require a high level of learning on the part of the test taker if the test is written at a high level. So again, the test that you will develop should be a combination of higher order thinking skills, and if you cannot avoid it, you mix a little bit of lower order thinking skills. Yeah, but focus more on the higher order thinking skills and less more of the low order thinking skills. A good test should be easy to take and easy to score. What does it mean? Because it is well written, it is properly constructed, so your students should be able to answer them easily, correctly. Now, because the objective there is to measure or assess their mastery of the task that you covered in your learning activities. Now, if everything is based on the learning activities, it shouldn't be a problem to your students to answer correctly and to get good score. Okay? Next, number 8, items should be fair. Questions should relate only to material that students should know, and an inflexible key should be used in scoring. What does this mean? This means that all the question items that you will use in your written test should only be within the scope of your learning activities. Because within the learning activities, then you expect your students to know. Now, look at another line here. They should, and an inflexible key should be used in scoring, meaning to say your answer key should be definitive, should be exact. It cannot be okay, you can do that. Can also. Okay lah, you give half. You give half mark. Okay, you give mark. It cannot be like that. It has to be something very exact, very definite, because if the answer is wrong, mark wrong. If the answer is correct, mark correct. That's why it's called inflexible, meaning to say you have already a set of ready answers which you expect your students to get, or anybody or a proxy or a proctor can use as a guide in marking. Is this clear, everyone?
Yes, yes.
Okay, good. Thank you for replying. There is a continuation of this one. So another 6 more. It says it tests also reflect the effectiveness of the learning activities and resources students are using. When several students fail to reach mastery of a task, the trouble may lie with the learning materials. Okay, now, meaning to say, because you, by the time you would have, you will assess your students, you will know, remember the formative assessment? Kan? The formative type of assessment is something that you do somewhere at the beginning and during the during the lesson, right? Now the test that you will make is a summative type of test, whereby before you give the summative test, you will know already as to, oh, I think I should improve on this one so that my students will do good, so that my students will be really competent. And this is when you say here, when several students fail to reach a mastery of a task, it will be because of the learning materials. Meaning to say, maybe you did not do your homework in the during part. You did not do any monitoring. You did not do any formative assessment. Hence, when you assess them at the end, they do not perform well. Because the good thing about assessment during the lesson or during the conduct of the learning activities is because you will know whether your students are learning, and if they are not learning, you will know the reason why they are not learning. Or it could be maybe the way you teach not so effective, so you use different strategy so that you become more effective. So by the time you give them a summative test, your students should be able to answer properly. Okay. Number 10, testers should keep track of how often students miss specific items. When a higher than usual number of students miss a particular items, it probably needs to be rewarded. Okay. That's why this has to do with how you write, how you construct the question. That's why try to use simple, easy to understand question items. Because it says here, if sometimes when the students, if in the number of times you use the test and you notice that a particular test item is where most of the students do not do good, then maybe it's the way that test item is written. Then you need to rewrite it and use a much easily understood words. And this is what it means. It probably needs to be rewarded. You need to use words that are much easier to understand. Next, number 11, each item on a test should stand alone. Information for subsequent items should not be revealed in an earlier item. Meaning to say, sometimes when you make tests, it cannot be helped that sometimes they seem to be the same. You may do that, but as long as you do not give any clue. Okay, again, you do not use you do not use an, and you do not give out words that could give them a hint. Oh, this question, like the answer, like the question in number 2. Look, so there goes. That's why it says here, information should not be revealed in the earlier part. So try to make sure that they may not be necessarily independent, but if you can help not to use if you are not able to use something similar, but you make sure you do not give away words or cues or clues, so that your students will be able to relate and give the answer view of that. 12, have someone review your test before administering them. Meaning to say, you can always draft the test, and then if you have someone from your department that teaches the same topic, then maybe you can ask your friend or your teammate to check whether, please have a look at my test. Do you think it's okay? Do you think it covers already the learning outcomes of my lesson? So practice this team teaching, because sometimes you must not feel threatened if you show your work to your colleagues just because you want them to give their opinion of your work. Okay. Number 3, include clearly worded directions of each test. Okay. Meaning to say, your direction that you have, direction or instruction that you have, in your test should be clearly worded, easily worded, using words that could be easily understood. Okay. 14. Avoid questions from codes, specific pages of books, or other trivial sources. So meaning to say, you don't really have to use this like codes, what specific page of the book it was taken, or whatever references. You are not to use this kind of testing, yeah? And number 15, shoot for a minimum mastery score of 100% if possible. Meaning to say, always aim that the students will be able to achieve 100% score. It says here, try to boil the test down to as few items as possible and word them carefully. Meaning to say, if you simplify your test, but capturing the learning outcomes, if you simplify the words that you use in the test, then there is no reason why your students will be able to score high. Okay. If you use something less than 100%, you should have a very good reason other than student just won't score 100%. So this is it, everyone. If you, as a teacher, you did your best, you covered everything in your lesson, the learning outcomes have been covered fully well, you could see during the formative assessment that your students could do good, then your test, your summative test, should give you a very good score of mastery, which is not less than 100%. But sometimes, or sadly, it does not happen all the time. Yeah. So anyway, we can always follow these guidelines. So everybody, is this clear? Everyone?
For me, it's clear, and the other, I don't know.
Yes,
Okay.
Mr.
Okay, good. So, okay, it's clear. So because we will go to another lesson where there will be group activities. Okay. This one, our next topic is this: table of specification. I know I'm not very sure if you are familiar with this, but in any test construction, it is very important that you have a table of specifications. This is where you will be able to use the Bloom's taxonomy, six levels of cognitive domain. Okay, so table of specifications in assessment is also known as TOS, T-O-S. It is also called a test blueprint. It is a tool that we use when we design or prepare a test. It is a map or a guide for us to assign the appropriate number of items to topics that are in your course or subject. Now, the TOS coordinate the assessment questions with the time you spend on any particular content area, the objectives of the unit being taught, and the level of critical thinking required by the objectives. Okay, so meaning to say, you need to know the TOS, you need to know how much time you spend on teaching a topic, what are the objectives of that particular topic or that unit, and what are the levels of critical thinking of that particular objective. So the levels could be the Bloom's taxonomy, 6 cognitive domains of learning. Yeah. So anyone, any comment on this before we proceed? Hello? Have you done this before?
Table of specification is similar to checklist.
No, not necessarily. Checklist is, if it is for assessment, it is a tool that you use to assess the presence or absence of a performance of a task. Okay. In this case, a TOS is a guide that you use for you to be able to identify how many items, test items, should be used in capturing a given topic depending on the number of hours that you spend on teaching that particular topic or in teaching that particular learning outcome, right? And then you will be able, you don't have to capture all the 6 domains, but the overall, if let's say the whole unit, you may capture the 6 cognitive domains, but not necessarily one topic capturing all the 6 domains. Okay, so let's proceed. So you have not done this yet, or you've done this before?
Similar, we have done.
You have done.
Similar,
Okay.
but it's a different form.
Okay,
But
so let's find.
must have that.
Every teacher, prior to giving a test, should have this. This is part of your evidence plan, so that when you are audited, when someone from the school inspects your work and they ask for your test, one of the documents that they will ask from you is, can I see your table of specifications? Because the table of specifications is the evidence or a tool that will tell the inspector that you have 50 test items, X number of question items for this unit, X number of items for this topic, X number of items for this topic. And then in the actual test paper, your inspector should tell, okay, you said this topic has 6 questions. Let me see. They should tally. Okay, let's move on. Right. So let's find out how to go about developing table of specifications. Right? One, you have to determine the objectives of the test. Second, determine the coverage of the test. Okay. Third, calculate the weight for each topic. Fourth, determine the number of items for the whole test. Fifth, determine the number of items per topic. Now, when you say the objectives here, what are the intended learning outcomes? So you have a choice between the test, knowing the learning outcomes. What are you going to assess? The cognitive, the affective, the psychological, psychomotor. So cognitive objectives to do with the knowledge and understanding. Affective to do with their attitude. Psychomotor to build the physical or motor skills. Right. Number 2, determine the coverage of the test. Here, what are you expected to do? Include only topics or contents you covered in the class. Okay, nothing outside, but only you covered. 3, calculate the weight of the topic. The weight assigned per topic is based on the relevance of the time spent to cover. So this has to do with how much time you spend to teach. Okay, this is determined by dividing the number of time spent per topic during the instruction over the total to cover all the topics. I'll show you later. 4, determine the number of items for the whole test. Here, doing this, you have to consider the amount of time needed to answer the items. And then here, question is determine the number of items per topic. You need to consider the weights per topic. How do you do it? Divide the total number of items for the whole test by the class hours or time. Okay, let's do it. Okay, have a look, everybody. This one is based, okay, this is an example, everybody, which you are to use as a guide. Example. This is just a reference which you do not necessarily have to follow. This is just to give you an idea what it looks like. Okay, so here it is to do with what is the competency. The competency is weld carbon steel plates using Seameo. Okay, small machine arts welding. Yeah, small machine arts welding. Now look here. What to be competent in welding carbon steel plates using small machine arts welding, the student should be able to perform all these tasks. What are the tasks? Remember we learned just now? Job, duty, tasks. Okay? Now look here. These are the, what is this? Competency, weld carbon steel plates. And what are the tasks involved? What are the steps? I'm sorry. What are the steps involved? Perform root pass, clean root pass, weld subsequent root pass, perform capping. So competency, this is the task. In competency-based education and training, competency refers to the task. The task consists of many steps. Now, 1, 2, 3, 4, these are the steps. Now, the steps then becomes the learning outcomes. Your student is not considered competent if he is not able to perform all of the 4 steps correctly. Your student is called competent in this task if he is able to perform 1, 2, 3, 4 correctly. Okay? Now, how do we do? Remember taxonomy. Remembering, understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, and creating. Okay. So here, to do this task, to learn this, please listen because this is how you will do it. To learn this task requires you a total of 30 hours, right? To learn this task, this competency, the total number is 30 hours. And if you divide one step, you are required to teach for 10 hours. Second step, clean root pass, you are required to teach 4 hours. To weld the subsequent passes, you are required to teach 6 hours. And to perform capping, you are required to teach 10 hours. Okay, so this is correct. The class hours, first you have to write like this. Second, you want to know, this is the step, yeah? Next is percentage of class hours. How do you do it? 10 hours divided by 30 hours will give you 33%. 4 hours divided by 30% times 100% gives you 14%. 6 hours divided by 30% gives you 20%. 10 hours divided by 30% gives you 33%. Now look, this one, class hours is 30%. The total percentage of class hours, if this is 30 at the bottom, here should be 100. Then you are correct. Okay, next. This one should be first empty, empty. This is empty. In the real sense, this should be empty. I'm just giving you an example. Now look, so we did this. After this is this one. Now this, nothing. Empty, 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 empty. Then the next thing you will do is the 30, you will ask yourself, how many question items I would like to use? Okay, what do you do? So this one, I said, oh, okay, I want my test to have 30 items only. So you put here 30 items. So what do you do next? Everybody. Okay, so what do you do to arrive at how many items that you want to use for this understanding, remembering, understanding, like applying, analyzing, evaluating? You have to, okay, if you spend here, here look, number of item scores, percentage of class hours times the total number of items. So what do you do? If I put here 33% percentage of class hours times total number of items, everybody, you will get how many items? Here. So here 33% times 30%, times 30, I'm sorry, 33 over here, see, percentage of class hours times total number of items. So this 33% times 30, you will have 9.9 rounded up 10 items, right? Next, 14% times 30 items, it will give you 4 items. And then 20% times 30 gives you 6 items. 30%, 33% times 30% at times 30 gives you 9.9 rounded of 10. Now you look, the total of this should come up to this, right? Is this clear? Everybody? Now you will have, okay, so later you will have here, so if this, the middle part, say that the middle part is empty, then you will have root 1, learning objective or learning outcome 1, you are to make 10 questions. Clean root pass, you are to make 4 questions. Look at the arrow, the cursor. Third outcome, you are to make 6 questions. Perform capping, you are to make 10 questions. Okay, later on you have 10, you have to break it down. How many items? Is it remembering, understanding, applying? Okay, so you do 1 step, first step, second step, third step, fourth step, then you split. You break down. Okay, I repeat, everybody. First step is get the class hours. followed by percentage of class hours, then followed by the total number of test items you want, then followed by number of test item or scores, and then after which breakdown how many items you have. Okay, can we practice? Then look here, I put at the bottom, I say true or false. How many? Why is it true? 2, 2, 1, 5. So 2 plus 2 plus 1 plus 5. I put here 10 items. There, 10 items. Here is 10 items. Here, multiple choice. How many is my multiple choice? Here, MCQ 1, 3, 4, 5. So I put here MCQ. I have 5. Okay, next, matching type. I have how many? 1, 2, 3, 4. Where's the other 5? Matching type, I should have 5. Oh, here, 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There is the 5. And essay, I have 5, 6, 5 and 5. I have 10. Altogether, this is 30. Matching this. This and this should tally. Okay, let's practice. Let's say using the same. Okay, everybody, I want you to practice individually before we do exercises. Let's say using this 10, 30 hours, 33, and then total percentage 100 hours. I want you to make this at the bottom. You will make test items to 50. Let's compute, everybody. 50 test items. Okay, under number 1, what do you have, everyone? Under number 1, if your total answer is test items, hang on. So if you have 50 items, so what do you do? 33%, 33% times 50. What is the answer? Everyone, can you compute? How many test items? Hello.
Hello, hello.
Hello, yes. We will use the same, except this is an example. We will use the same number of hours, but we will change this. We will change randomly assigning 50 test items altogether. So let's practice. Learning outcome number 1, 33% times 50. How many is that? Can you give me the answer? Everyone?
Professor, so the answer you need 50%, right?
No, not
do you mean-
50%. No. It should be 33%. Look at the cursor. 33%. Now we will multiply this by the assigned total number of test items. Just now, our example is 30. Now, I would like for you to change this to 50.
50.
Okay.
You want 50, right?
50, yes. So tell me, 33% times 50 becomes how many?
Wait. Calculate first.
Oh, use the phone. Everyone, practice this one because you will do it later. 33% times 50. Hello.
Yeah. 15, maybe 15.
What do you have? It's 33% times 50.
17, teacher.
Your answer there is 16.5, right?
16, yeah.
Your answer is 16.5, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so when you do this, okay, so first when you assign, don't do any rounding off first. You first put 16.5. You will do rounding off later. Okay, so 16.5. Next, 14% times 50 is how much?
$20.5.
20? Hey?
20.5.
14. No, 14 times 50. 14% times 50.
7.
Right, correct. The next, go to the next. 20% times 50.
10 hour. 10.
Then 10. All right. So now try to, and then another is 33% times 50. How many?
The same. 16.5.
Okay.
16,
All right.
50.
Now
16,
you have, can you please
50.
add
For,
together? Okay. So you should have a
yeah,
total of
16,
50. Okay. So 16.5 plus 7 plus 10 plus 16.5. How many is that? Can you add? What is your total?
$50.
50, right? It should be, you have 50.5, right? Because
Yes.
you have 16.5 plus 6. Okay, hang on. 16.5
50.
plus 16, 50, right? So
Yes.
you have, but the thing is, you cannot make, because you have 16.5 plus 7 plus 10 plus 16.5, right? Miss Cheng, because 33% of 50 gives you a score of 16.5, right? Hello? Hi.
Oh.
Can you hear me? I'm confirming with you whether 33% of 50 equals 16.5. Correct or not?
16.5.
16.
Pardon, teacher?
I'm asking, I'm confirming with you.
16.
If 33% times 50 equals 16.5. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think so.
Yes, correct. Okay, now the thing is, so this is correct because 16.5 plus 7 plus 10 plus 16.5, it gives you 50. But look, can you make a test question that is 16.5? It has to be rounded up, right?
Yes.
All right, good. Thanks for confirming. So now what you do is you weigh
16.5.
among, okay, so what you
Yes.
could do, correct. So what you could do is you can assign the other half point to one of the learning outcomes. So what we could do, we make number 1, 16 points, number 2, 7 points, and number 3, 10 scores, and then we will make item number 4 as 17. So you add the extra 0.5 to number 4. So you have a total of 50. Now you will have 16 items. You will have,
bật mute ផងលោកគ្រូសុភ័ក្រ
all right. So here, now the final score, it will be 16, 7, 10, 17, and 17. So altogether, you will have 50. Now, I would like for you to practice this. Can you have a group using this as your guide? I would like for you and your team to think of a task that you ask your students to do, and then break down this task into learning outcomes following this guideline. Okay? Uh, my colleague from our IT department should be able to help you to have this one. Okay, use this as a guide and try to come up with a simple table of specifications related to the topic that you are teaching. Okay, you have to agree. So Arifin and Mona, could we group them? We will have a breakout room so that you can do activities together with your colleagues. There are 33 of you, and we have split all of you into 6 groups. Six groups, I repeat, or 5 groups? Okay, so you are split. Thank you very much. You are split into 6 groups. So whoever is in your group, you are to work together and come up with a simple table of specifications related to your area of specialization. Okay, let's do it now. Thank you.
Oops. Okay. Shall we start juga?
Yes, yes, please, Mona.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Okay, ready juga?
Yes, please. Thank you.
So, yang paling turun on dia on. Pilih-pilih. Ada yang ku status. Ada yang ku status.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I will just example here. Nada? Okay. I'm just looking at this one. Hang on. So I want to go breakout room here. A breakout room, yeah. So where do I go?